Hello there. This is just going to be a short one today. It's very, very sunny today in Kerry, as you can probably tell. I'm having to shield my eyes from the bright sun. But it's actually pretty cold still. But I'm delighted to have a bit of sun after 2 weeks of mostly very, very heavy rain. So the solar system is charging up nicely this morning, which is brilliant. And it's lovely to hear the bird song as well. So, let's get into it. Over here I have a few more ornamental trees and bushes put in. Over there I have some sweet chestnuts which I got very cheap in the garden centre. They'll be put over on the edge of the land because they're going to grow pretty huge eventually. So when you're planting trees you have to think about that, because there's no point putting a tree that's going to grow to like 30 meters or more right next to your house. You know, that needs to go somewhere far away from where you live or any other buildings. But there are trees that only grow sort of a very small amount, some on rootstocks and some that naturally stay small, like for instance hawthorns. They tend to grow no more than about 3 meters tall, although they can spread out quite a lot, but they don't tend to get very tall. And there's quite a few other trees of similar, which you can easily find all those online. When you go and buy trees from a garden centre or online even, there usually be a label on the actual tree, tells you how big it grows over a 10-year period or its full lifetime. And on the internet, when you're buying stuff, there'll be that same information. So you need to check these things. If you're looking for something small, be very careful. If you don't care how big it gets and it's far away from a building, then you know you can put anything in really, pretty much. You can even put in a redwood if you really, really want. Well, of course they're not native to this part of the world, but they are beautiful. So over here is a small shrub, or grows into a very small tree eventually, Euonymus alatus, which is particularly beautiful in the autumn. It looks pretty terrible right now, it's just a bunch of sticks, but this will come into leaf, and in the autumn it'll give the most amazing red colour. It's really, really incredible. Here you can see a bit of a strange thing I've done here. I put down this plastic sheeting onto the ground. So why have I done this? It's to kill off the grass underneath. So I don't like using chemicals, so other options are burn it off, which I've done in some places where I've had a fire, and then you spread the hot embers around, which burns off the grass. Or the other thing is to do what I've done here and cover it all up. And then for really pernicious weeds, you really might, if you really had to, I've got some organic weed killer which you can use. Now this area here is actually going to be a herb garden, which is why I have these slabs here, so that I can walk in between. So there's 2 sections on this side, and under here you can see there's another load of slabs. So I better walk along and attend to both sides without ruining the plants. And you can see here, I've got a couple of pots here, but this one is buried in the ground, and you might be thinking, why not has he done that? What you're looking at here is mint. It's dormant at the moment, but it will very soon be waking up. And the reason why it's in there is to contain it, because mint will spread. It'll spread like wildfire if given the chance. So what I've done by putting it in this large pot, it will hinder its ability to spread out across this area. Believe me, if given a few years, like in 5 years' time, if I had put the mint in the ground, this entire bit of herb garden here would be completely mint, and there'd be very little else growing, because it's so invasive. It spreads like mad, it's vigorous, and it can swamp your other plants. So what I'll be putting in here, you'll notice the ground is sloping, which is good because I want it to drain freely, and I'm going to be putting some sand in here as well, because I want to grow some Mediterranean herbs like lavender and marjoram, oregano, thyme. All these things, they don't like lots and lots of water. And of course that's the problem with Ireland, is it's you have no shortage of water. So one thing you can be sure of is it's going to bleeding rain a lot. So yeah, sand is a good way of increasing the drainage. So you want to be careful. Don't ever go and take sand from a beach. There's two reasons for that. One, it's illegal to take beach sand, and two, beach sand is full of salt, and most plants are not very salt tolerant, unless they're coastal plants anyway. They would be more tolerant of salt, but go and buy sand. You can buy, the cheapest sand is from a hardware shop. You can also buy it in garden centres too, but you can buy big sacks for a very small amount of money in a builder's merchant hardware shop. And that way you can condition your soil to make it more suitable for Mediterranean plants by increasing the drainage. If you live in a wet country like Ireland, then that's kind of necessary if you don't want your Mediterranean plants to snuff it. I've seen that problem so much with lavenders. Unbelievable amount of lavenders that just die because poor drainage, and they can't cope with the winter weather, and they just unfortunately die very easily if their feet are wet the whole time, so to speak. So you know, I think a lot of gardening is common sense. A lot of it's sort of like being a medic or a doctor. You know, you look at the situation, you can see your plant's not very well, and you try to diagnose what's wrong with it. I suppose with experience you get better at looking at plants and telling what's wrong with them. To start with, it can be a bit bewildering, but you know, if you think of it as a living being rather than just a thing, I think that really helps. It certainly helps me to sort of tune in with the plant, look at it, and look at its the whole plant and all of its body, if you like, and trying to sense what's wrong with it as well. And then I find usually that works. You can figure out what the problem is, why the plant's unhappy and why it might be unwell. And then once you know what's wrong, you can do something about it. I mean, I've got some very useful books on plant pests and diseases. So if I can see something that's wrong, but I don't know exactly what the condition is, I can look it up and then take the appropriate action to help put things right. As you can see here, an in progress Japanese garden. I'm missing the gravel that I need for this, but a lot of the planting is done. I've got a lot of ornaments in already. And this area here is going to be a Zen garden with different type of gravel. I've got a lovely Buddha statue here. So at the top of this is going to be a Shinto garden. And there will be a special, what's called a torii, which is a Shinto gate, a shrine gate, which will be just here. Although, as you can see, there's just the posts so far. So this is a really quite a big project. It's going to take quite some time to get this right. So this is not a naturalistic garden, this part. So this is one garden within the entire garden. Some parts will be completely wild, and this part, the Japanese garden, will be quite controlled, although it will be absolutely full of East Asian and Southeast Asian plants, mostly Japanese plants, but there'll be some from China and from Korea as well. And I think some of the rhodies and azaleas reach as far as Thailand, actually, some of what I've got here. And of course, at this time of year, the beautiful camellias. This is the Camellia japonica, which is, as the name implies, Japanese camellia. You might be familiar with the Chinese one, which is Camellia sinensis, which most people in Ireland drink a beverage of that every day, commonly known as tea, cured brown tea, which is the leaf of the Camellia sinensis, which is dried and cured. And if it's not cured, then it's what's called green tea, which is a lot more popular in Asia. than it is here, although I have to say in recent years it has become increasingly popular in the whole of Europe, and I drink that every morning. I didn't particularly like it to start with, but I've got used to drinking green tea, and in Japan they've got lots of different types of green tea as well, which were really interesting and quite delicious, some of them. And it has amazing health benefits. It's much better for you. The green tea, which hasn't been cured, is more beneficial than the regular black tea that most Irish and British people are used to drinking.